Hi, I'm Fox with FoxeoGames, and this is the Vanishing of Ethan Carter for the PC, also available on PlayStation 4. Similar in appearance to games like DeathAdder, the Vanishing of Ethan Carter features minimal gameplay and instead focuses on the slow revelation of the story through atmosphere and environmental details. But is this adventure worth bothering with in the first place? Let's find out. As always, we begin with the PC port. Please note that this is the original Unreal Engine 3 version, not the updated Unreal Engine 4 re-release. When you first launch it, you'll see a launcher with various graphics options. I was later surprised to find that the same graphics options here are also available in-game. Options include resolutions up to at least my max of 1920 by 1080, full screen windowed or borderless windowed mode, VSync, frame rate, which can be set to 60 FPS smoothed or unlimited, texture detail levels, anisotropic filtering, and various levels of anti-aliasing. There are quality presets to choose from as well. In the Advanced tab, you'll find numerous binary options, including motion blur, bloom, light shafts, and distortion, as well as levels for light maps, materials, and detail distance. There are plenty of options here, and it's nice to have the choice to be able to change them before launching the game as well as in the game. Unfortunately, I kept encountering an annoying stutter as I explored the game's world, dropping my frame rate by up to 40 frames per second at a time. It was very noticeable and broke the immersion quite a bit. It seemed to occur when the game was streaming in new areas or textures. I maxed everything out, turning off VSync and setting it to unlimited frame rate. Depending on where I was in the game, I saw anything from frame rates in the 50s to well over 100. Generally, it stayed consistently above 60 FPS, even with anti-aliasing set to maximum quality. Other than the stuttering issue, it's a solid performer. As for the graphics, well, let me just say that this game has the most technically impressive photorealistic graphics I've ever seen. Granted, if you get real up close to the leaves on the trees, you'll see the obvious 3D textures, but you won't normally be closely scrutinizing such minutia. When traversing through the world normally, everything looks amazing and well detailed. Rocks look like real rocks, trees look like real trees, and the grass sways to and fro in an almost hypnotic fashion. The water looks amazing and reflects the sun, which casts some of the most realistic outdoor lighting I've ever laid eyes on. The way the light from the sun peeks through the trees and casts realistic shadows is just stunning. There are few games which nearly took my breath away with their beauty, and The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is definitely one of them. By default, the game has this sort of fisheye look to the first-person viewpoint, and it adds a unique feel to the game. I'm not sure if I like it or not. Indoor areas are a little less visually stunning, mostly due to the lack of light and the tendency of dark areas to lose detail. Fortunately, quite a lot of detail is still maintained, even in some of the darkest of areas, which is definitely awesome. There's a bit of variety in the visuals, although it's mainly forests and old buildings. There are also a few amazing vistas you can capture from the bridge at the top of the dam, giving you a spectacular view of the cliff sides. The game features some unique effects, not all of which I can talk about for spoiler reasons, and unfortunately the effect for fire looks a little fake. It screams computer graphics, particularly when set against the backdrop of the rest of the game's incredible visuals. But overall, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is simply amazing to look at. The sound engineering in the game is solid and I have no complaints. There's not a lot going on, so it's hard for me to comment much on this. It's not like there's a bunch of shooting or casting of magic, so the sounds are pretty tame but well done. The music is melodic and atmospheric. It's something you might like to put on your media player while you read a book or work on a puzzle. It nicely complements the game's atmosphere and landscapes. The voice work in the game is another story. It's never terrible and sometimes quite good. Unfortunately, during critical story segments, it can come off as ham-fisted and phoned in. The inflections and voice patterns don't always match the emotion of the scene, and the writing for the voice work towards the end felt out of step with the rest of the game. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is, not surprisingly, a story about Ethan Carter's disappearance. Your goal is to figure out what happened, and you must slowly piece it together from various clues in the environment. You'll occasionally hear short lines of dialogue that reveal tidbits of the story. It's hard to say much else without ruining what experience is offered here, but let me just say that if you stick with it, you'll find a very interesting and surprising story here. Like I said, I don't want to give anything away, but just stick with it to the end. Trust me, it gets more interesting. Unfortunately, as I mentioned above, the writing towards the end started to feel a bit out of character for the game, and one character in particular breaks out with some really out-of-place profanity. You'll know what I'm talking about when you hear it. But what about the gameplay? Well, there's not a lot of it here. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter does qualify as a game in my opinion, since you do interact with objects, puzzles, and people. You can indeed die in the game, which produces a failure state, in stark contrast to some non-games like DeathAdder and Proteus. The game is presented as a supernatural murder mystery, and your role in the story is detective. You must piece together the clues of what happened here and ultimately discovered what happened to Ethan Carter. There is no inventory, no health bar, no stamina bar, although you do collect some items and you can sprint. Mostly you just left click on various objects in the environment, generally in a specific order, or to collect evidence, most of which is simply observation. So what's the verdict? Well, I was initially blown away by the incredible visuals, and the music complemented the atmosphere so well that I stayed interested for a little while. If you happen to wander around in the wrong areas not realizing what you're supposed to be doing, it can get really boring really fast. There's very little guidance, and I found myself stuck in less than a half hour. Your interactions with most objects are limited to doing nothing more than picking it up, turning it around, looking at it, and putting it back down. It'd be nice if you could take these clues with you and look at them anytime you like, but you can't. There's also no journal to keep records of these things, and some may be relevant to puzzles later in the game. Speaking of puzzles, when I first played the game, I didn't even notice most of the puzzles. I had no idea they were even puzzles to be solved. I quickly got lost, stuck, bored, or some combination of the three, until I finally gave up and used a walkthrough. Let me just say that while it may be spoiling the challenge of the game, I was not about to wander aimlessly for hours trying to figure out what to do and where to go. The walkthrough made the game enjoyable for me. And so I did enjoy my time with the game, however short it was. With a walkthrough, it shouldn't take more than around 4 hours. For me, it wasn't about puzzles. Those are not my cup of tea anyway. I did enjoy taking in the environment and discovering what happened as the story slowly revealed itself bit by bit. I didn't think that everything was explained as well as it should have been, and I feel like there are still a few loose ends, but it did wrap up nicely for the most part. It didn't end the way I was expecting it to, but I didn't mind. Your mileage may vary. All in all, while not my typical choice for a game, I thought The Vanishing of Ethan Carter was ultimately worth the time it took to play, and I enjoyed the story enough to keep me pushing through it, albeit with a walkthrough. I would say that my biggest complaint with The Vanishing of Ethan Carter was the fact that there was no always run option, so in order to keep moving fast, which I always wanted to do, I had to hold the shift key down at all times, which made my pinky quite sore. Other than that, it was pretty much a great experience. But what did you think of The Vanishing of Ethan Carter? Let me know in the comment section below. Give the video a like if you liked it, make sure to subscribe for more content, and check the video description for links to my Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Let's Play channel, and all that good stuff. I'm Fox with FoxeoGames, and I'll see you next time.